he is.
Oh, hiya, Jim.
Hey.
Well, look, we still have a few minutes before we go on the air. I'd like to tell you about the time that Eleanor and I went down to
Oh, let's save the talk. Can't we agree that capitalism is an economic system? A system for the production and distribution of things we need and want?
I won't agree to that.
She's losing altitude fast. Tell Anderson to have the department stake out every fence in town. Keep a lookout for these bonds. There's nothing more I can do. I'm bailing out. So long.
Get a hold of the chief right away, Bill. Okay.
Well, Kim Gate, I guess you pay me.
I'll pay you later.
Their new world might look promising, but although the land had been taken away from the capitalists, the workers didn't get it. Under communism, virtually everything belongs to the state. The individual has little right to own property or to plan his own life. He's told where to work with his employer, little freedom to leave his job or seek a better one. Whereas we believe, and our religions teach, that the individual is all important, communism denies religion and debases the individual to a part of the vast machine that powers the state. Children are taken early and molded to fit the machine. Children are taught to accept communism and their fate without question.
Not until you say something about government, too. There has to be a legal basis for any economic system to operate.
Well, it's easy to see that you have different ideas of what capitalism is. Maybe we should talk about what it is not. It is not a system of strict governmental control and planning in which a dictator or board tells people what jobs they may hold and what goods they may produce.
And it's not a system of government ownership. Let me tell you about something.
Calling the House Un-American Activities Committee to order, Chairman J. Parnell Thomas of New Jersey opens an inquiry into possible communist penetration of the Hollywood film industry. The committee is seeking to determine if Red Party members have reached the screen with subversive propaganda. Mr. Thomas takes an impartial stand in his opening talk.
I want to emphasize at the outset of these hearings that the fact that the Committee on Un-American Activities is investigating alleged communist influence and infiltration in the moving picture industry must not be considered or interpreted as an attack on the industry itself, nor should our investigation be interpreted as an attack on the majority of persons associated with this great industry. I have every confidence that the vast majority of movie workers are patriotic and loyal Americans.
A long list of prominent motion picture witnesses appear before the committee. Speaking for the films, Eric Johnston, president of the Motion Picture Association, talks frankly concerning the attitude of the producers.
We're accused of having communists and communist sympathizers in our employ. Undoubtedly, there are such persons in Hollywood, as you will find elsewhere in America. But we neither shield nor defend them. We want them exposed. We're not responsible for the political or economic ideas of any individual, but we are responsible for what goes on the screen. We guard that with great care.
Hustle these into town.
Okay, I'll call you as soon as they deliver them.
Hello, is this Union Pacific? Well, I want to make a reservation on the transcontinental flyer leaving tonight to Shiloh. What's that? Holden's flag stop is the nearest station? Well, that'll be all right. The name, it's Natalie Brent. Yes, that's right. Thank you.
In 1917, at the time of the revolution, Russia was already a land of vast area. Soon after the end of World War II, Russia had occupied many new territories, bringing additional millions of people under communist control, and serving notice that Soviet Russia was now a world power to be reckoned with. United with Russia in war, we strove to preserve that unity in peace. We helped organize the United Nations, in which the nations of the world have mutually pledged to cooperate in fostering world peace and progress. Andrei Gromyko signed for Russia. But in the first post-war Italian elections, the communists created disorder in an attempt to gain control of the government. Once more, the world was reminded that basic in the idea of communism is the plan of world revolution, and that Russian communism has stepped beyond that plan to achieve world domination through aggression.
To protect their eyes against the flash which blotted out the morning sun, men are adequately prepared as each hour approaches. Even with these goggles, they saw a stab of light as brilliant as lightning, while those without goggles turned their backs and shielded their eyes with their arms. The bomb is away. It's falling. The seconds tick away. Up, 7 miles into the sky, the awe-inspiring cloud billows and surges, blotting out the destruction below. There is no earthquake, no tidal wave or other catastrophe to justify the fears of some. And while some observers felt that the Bikini Bomb was less powerful than its predecessors, many feel that the lessons learned here today will mean a reshuffling of man's strategy of national defense. The final verdict remains shrouded in military secrecy.
Some feel that the situation should be resolved at once.
Something ought to be done about it.
Well, sure something has to be done. What?
I don't know. My cousin Harry was saying last night he thinks the only thing to do is drop a big bunch of atom bombs over Russia fast. Well, maybe that's the only thing they'd understand.
Henry. Looks as though we're going to have company. You better keep under cover.
Pretty optimistic, aren't you, trying to hitchhike on a road like this?
Oh, no, that thought never entered my mind.
Well, I beg your pardon. I should have known you don't look like the usual run of hitchhikers.
Yeah, mister. You know,
Well, hitchhikers don't usually spend their time sitting around on rocks, do they?
well, some of us do. You see, there are all sorts of ways to do it. There's really quite an art to it. For instance, the ordinary way. And then there's the careless way, which of course means nothing, but there's a commanding way that can go on indefinitely and nothing ever happens.
Well, which do you find is the most successful?
Well, I usually like this one. Are you going my way, mister?
But speaking of going places, which way are you going?
Well, I'm going any way at all, but preferably straight ahead.
That's the way I'm going. Want to get in?
Thank you. Oh, no, don't bother. You see, I've climbed over a lot of wheels. I've really done an awful lot of riding in. Well, wait just a minute.
That's all right.
Double station.
Well, you're coming up in the world now.
Well,
There you are.
Let us face, without panic, the reality of our times. The fact that atom bombs may someday be dropped on our cities. And let us prepare for survival, understanding the weapon that threatens us. An atom bomb destroys or injures in 3 ways: by blast, heat, and radioactivity.
But though no responsible American advocates attack on Russia, today America, by a massive rearmament program based on a speedy reconstruction of its once mighty Air Force and by a new peacetime conscription program, has already demonstrated that in a world of continuing Soviet provocation, the nation's defense will no longer be neglected. But many clear-thinking Americans feel that armaments alone are not the answer. In the summer of 1947, Secretary of State Marshall had proposed to aid the nations of Europe. Money and supplies to get them on a sound operating basis and, coincidentally, to strengthen them against Soviet aggression were later made part of the plan. The first appropriation was $5 billion, and the Economic Cooperation Administration was set up in Washington with a staff of economists stationed throughout the world. Its chief was automotive industrialist Paul Hoffman. From the day he became head of ECA, Hoffman made urgent trips to Europe for first-hand views of the situation. As ECA administrator, Hoffman is responsible for the amounts each nation is allocated. Not only must American aid be dispersed for maximum immediate effect, but also with a long-range goal of making the aided nations eventually self-sufficient. Few men have ever borne a heavier responsibility. In Paris, Hoffman's principal aide is Averell Harriman, former U.S. ambassador to Great Britain and Russia, now special representative for ECA in all Europe. First order of business for Administrator Hoffman is a meeting with his 16 division chiefs for European countries to discuss the principal objectives of the program and each nation's special problems. In France, as in other nations on his itinerary, Hoffman follows up his fact-finding research into the country's needs by consultations with government leaders. Hoffman and Foreign Minister Schuman had agreed that the ECA's first $648 million allocated to France should go in part toward rebuilding French industry, which, though still functioning, is hopelessly antiquated by American standards. Of equal importance is the distribution of new equipment to enable French farmers to increase the country's food supply. Though the soil of France is richer and better tilled than any in Europe, ECA's agronomists are helping farmers plan for more thorough mechanization. In Italy, the problem of stabilizing the lira has been helped by ECA's $312 million. Hoffman is able to congratulate Premier de Gasperi and his minister Count Sforza on the country's progress and its stand against the communists. An important stop on Administrator Hoffman's rounds of Europe is Western Germany, whose recovery Russia is interested in preventing. Careful planning for the use of the $324 million allotted has helped Western Germany temporarily to its feet. A halt in the dismantling of German industry and the use of the ECA appropriation were heartening to the Western zones, and in a 2-month period, production increased by 20%. Toward the end of his most recent tour of inspection in Europe, Administrator Hoffman is greatly encouraged to discover that Europe is slowly but surely edging back towards economic health. The preliminary $597 million allotted to the United Kingdom were a desperately needed help in raising England's production and its export trade, vital to Britain's salvation. Hoffman is informed by Britain's Chancellor of the Exchequer, Sir Stafford Cripps, that much of the allotment had been earmarked for financing new construction and the modernization of Britain's industries. This streamlining of production facilities has already had a tonic effect on England's workers, who are constantly reminded of the country's economic situation and a drive for continuing effort.
And Canada and America lent us money. But, well, you know how it is. When you borrow, you've got to pay back. And in any case, you can't go on living on someone else's money forever.
What does that mean? Well, we can point to certain fundamental ideas which we say are part of a capitalistic system. For example, private property. Individuals or corporations may own land, natural resources, buildings of all kinds, machinery and equipment for the production of goods, facilities for the transportation of goods, and the goods themselves.
In a capitalistic system, these are usually private property. Another idea fundamental to capitalism is the profit motive. For the sake of profit, still for the sake of profit. Those who have savings often invest or lend them, hoping for a share of profit. And in so doing, help to build the industrial might of the nation.
I haven't the slightest idea what you're talking about.
You've made so many mistakes. You're one of the G-men that haven't been on your neck long ago.
Maybe they're not as clever as you are.
Maybe that's the reason they haven't been able to put a finger on me all the years I've been operating.
Any other reasons you'd like to mention?
Several. But there's no use discussing them here. You know the value of this arrangement I'm suggesting. With you and me handling those planes and my men looking after things in town, wouldn't be any slip-up. It's a natural.
Sounds pretty good.
Say, I'd like to know how you knocked those planes down. That's a swell racket.
Well, if we get together on a deal, you'll find out how it's done. In the next day or so, there's a big shipment of currency going to New York, and the plane will pass close by here. Suppose you call your boys in, and we'll go into it.
That won't be necessary. Any deal I make is satisfactory.
There's a fellow to see you, Tommy.
Any of the boys with you?
No, but they're getting mighty nervous. They're just about ready to blow this place off the map unless you show up pretty soon.
Oh, I'll take care of them. It's going to be a pleasure to work with a man like you.
It goes for me, too. I'll see you later when your boys get here.
Right.
What do you think of him? Did anyone see anything of his men?
No, Blackie said the only one they saw was the man that just left with him.
That's funny. A bunch of horses ought to be easy to see.
You mean they may be alone, that nobody was with them?
I told you Toomey had plenty of nerve, didn't I?
I'll start some of the boys riding.
Where's Miss Brent?
That's what I have to know.
Didn't you find her?
I searched every room and closet in that hotel. All I could find was a shortwave radio set.
Is it working?
Perfectly.
Well, then you get right back and call headquarters. Tell them to send a plane out here with 5 or 6 men in it right away.
Well, where am I going to find you?
Oh, I'll be around. Brent's hidden around here somewhere. I'm going to try to locate him.
Half of the miracle concerned that binding force we spoke of before, that kind of cosmic glue which holds the atom's nucleus together. We still don't know all about that binding force yet, but we do know it is equivalent to mass. Therefore, we may speak of it as having a kind of weight of its own. Now, the two atoms into which a uranium atom splits also have binding force. But for some reason, it takes less of that glue to hold them together, and in the process of fission, a tiny fraction is left over. What happens to it? It explodes as energy, proving Einstein's theory that mass and energy are really the same. But we spoke of a double miracle. To understand the second one, let's slow down that fission 1 million or so times. A single particle starts the reaction, splitting the uranium atom. Here now is the release of energy as heat and blast. Here are powerful rays being given off, similar to X-rays. But here are free neutrons driven out with tremendous speed. And provided there is sufficient U-235 present, what science calls a critical mass, those neutrons bombard other uranium atoms, causing them to split and split still others. The result? A chain reaction. Over 1 million billion atoms exploding within 2 seconds. And the force? It would take Yankee Stadium full of dynamite to equal the energy released in the complete fission of an amount of U-235 the size of a baseball. With this discovery at the time the free world faced a war for survival, it was little wonder the first thought was a weapon. But how to obtain enough material for even a single bomb? Only a small fraction of natural uranium is the U-235 isotope, which will fission in a chain reaction. And to separate enough U-235 quickly enough seemed all but impossible. But the impossible became reality as industry, labor, science, and the military combined their efforts to build Oak Ridge, where enough U-235 was separated to build the first atomic bomb.
USX. Calling USX. On 12 meters. Calling USX. Come in, USX. Come in, USX.
USX, go ahead.
Brownlee and Cavalry reporting. Have located the cause of plane crashes in Shiloh Mountains. Send a plane with about 6 men to a deserted house about 2 miles from Shiloh. They can see it from the air.
Okay, right away.
Right.
Learn the location of public shelters in areas where you work or frequently visit. There are many things you can begin doing right now. Fireproof housekeeping is one, so clean up that attic. Keep waste in covered containers. Don't let trash pile up in the yard. Set aside a small supply of canned goods. They're safe from radioactivity. Have a good flashlight on hand. Electric lights may go out. Keep a first aid kit and learn how to stop bleeding. Make a habit of keeping a bottle of fresh water handy. A radio will be important for receiving vital instructions. Finally, prepare the shelter area and collect all necessary shelter equipment. In case of an actual raid or test drill, the alert will be a warbling siren blast lasting 3 minutes. Once you hear this, act fast. Pull down the shades or blinds and close the drapes against flying glass. Turn off the burners of your gas or electric stove. Disconnect any heating elements, such as electric irons, hot plates, or bathroom heaters. Close all outside doors, but leave them unlocked. off the gas or oil burners. Taking shelter may be a race against time, even when you have some advance warning. But possibly, there may be no time. An attack could come without warning. The sky would suddenly light up. If a doorway is right at hand, use it. If the nearest shelter is more than a couple of steps away, fall to the ground immediately. Flying glass and debris are immediate dangers, so stay where you are until you're sure it's safe to move.
The high standard of living which America has been able to attain is based on our ability to produce goods in quantity. Mass production is the basis for our entire economic life. Land, labor, management, and money are some of the essentials of production. However, if the land is idle, it cannot produce anything of value. If labor is idle, it cannot produce. But this man could be a producer if he had a job. This man may have many of the qualifications of leadership and management so necessary for successful business. But without money, he has nothing to manage. Idle dollars lying in a bank vault are not helping to put either the land, the labor, or the manager to work. If a man who has ability, imagination, initiative, courage, and leadership is able to bring together these essentials of production, the wheels of industry may start.
The huge 100-ton dreadnought packs 32,000 horsepower in its 8 jet engines. At the controls during the initial flight are veteran test pilot Max Stanley, center, and crew of 2. Theirs is a big job, and like a giant boomerang, the mammoth craft picks up speed. Trailing streams of smoke from its jets, Uncle Sam's latest ace of the atom age passes its test with flying colors.
Here's a demonstration of how tanks and infantry fight. The rifleman clears the way for the tanks, while the tanks use their machine guns to destroy enemy automatic fire. Despite the rugged Korean terrain, the tank has performed an endless variety of services. It has climbed up steep hills, cooperated with the Air Force in joint attacks, and provided accurate covering fire for infantry units engaged in probing enemy positions on high ground. Where necessary, it has acted as a long-range gun, along with howitzers and mortars to pound fortified hill positions. Modified, it has even built roads. American armor has fought against overwhelming enemy strength. The results were measured in enemy casualties and prisoners of war. The tank has unique characteristics, placing it apart from any other modern weapon. Let's take a closer look at these characteristics which make it so formidable in the field. First superiority of the tank is its prodigious firepower. Second, its mobility. That is, speed and capacity to maneuver. Third, its armored protection. Since the days of medieval knights, man has attempted to place a protective barrier between himself and enemy weapons. Today, modern armor keeps pace with the increasing effectiveness of projectiles. The major factor in tank planning is the ratio between tank firepower and tank size, which affects the tank's mobility. Planners know that a tank's maneuverability and speed may be as protective to the tank as its firepower. Finally, the tank brings into combat a psychological factor. Protected tanks roll through the fire and over the enemy positions, enabling final mop-up action by the rifleman.
Over an extended period, many conferences with government officials, attorneys, auditors, and businessmen are held before the numerous regulations of the Securities and Exchange Commission can be met. After the corporation has met all the requirements for listing, the manager presents the material to an official of the stock exchange. Let's listen to the end of their interview.
I believe I have all the data you will need. You have our application with a 3-year audit prepared by approved accountants.
It appears to be a very fine report. By the way, how many stockholders do you have?
We have 1,600 stockholders at present. We want to provide them with the advantages of an organized market, where our stockholders can sell if they choose and others may buy with the greatest speed and safety.
Well, I will present your application to the Board of Governors on Wednesday for approval of listing, and I will advise you of its decision.
Some other ideas are basic to capitalism. Competition, freedom of contract, free enterprise. What do they mean? Could these rights exist without laws that define and protect them?
Has Brent discovered what's wrong with these apparatus?
No, he's still...
You think I wouldn't show up again?
Why, I thought you were...
Yeah, I'm not a ghost. I'll tell you about it later. Hey, Brent's daughter's outside.
Brent's daughter?
Yeah, I met her down the road. She's looking for her father.
Bring her in.
Come in, Brent.
Well, I'm glad Charlie saw you. Did your father send for you?
Well, no, he didn't, but I was anxious not hearing from him for so long.
Well, we don't have mailboxes on every corner out this way.
Where is he?
Busy in his laboratory. I'll take you to him in just a minute.
Say, aren't you one of the men I saw in Shiloh?
Oh, the time Tim Toomey held us up?
Hey, when did Toomey have a gun on you?
Why, he showed up in Shiloh like you said he would with a gang of men and stuck us up.
When?
Oh, about a couple of weeks after he shot you.
Why, you're crazy. Toomey gunned me all right, but the G's got him before he could make a getaway. Toomey's in jail in Los Angeles. Here's the proof of it.
Well, well. This is news. Toomey will be glad to hear it.
Yeah. Won't he?
See if you can find Tim. Give him my compliments and say I'd like to see him. Requires me to learn he's from the Department of Justice. Come on, Miss Brent. We'll go and see your father.
So, in all the time they've held you prisoner, you've never let them know how the apparatus works? It would be a horrible weapon in the hands of unscrupulous men. Your best bet is to... They ask. They think I'm a gangster named Toomey, so I can work from the inside.
Dad.
Darling.
Why, you're a prisoner here. Who is this man?
Why, you're entirely mistaken. We're not holding your father prisoner. We're just protecting him. Aren't we, Brent?
Yes, that's right, Natalie.
Why, there's nothing to worry about. Your father can walk out of here anytime he pleases. That is, just as soon as he completes a little business deal we're in together.
That's true.
Don't you think we can finish up our business pretty quick now? There's a plane coming over this afternoon.
Why, they're using your radium ray to rob and kill. There were women and children on that first plane that crashed.
They told me they were only the pilots and that they had parachutes.
Oh. Why, the young lady's had a little too much excitement. She ought to rest. Now, you go through with our program, get that thing working, and everything will be all right.
If communists have attempted to inject their propaganda into the motion picture, they have failed miserably. we will never permit them to succeed.
You ought to sue that paper for libel, Tim. Saying that you're in jail when we all know you're here.
Looks like the joke's on me, doesn't it?
Oh. I wouldn't say it's a joke. Get him up. All right, Charlie, come in.
That plane we saw is a government ship.
Better shut off that projector. Better get it started again. It's just too bad, Copper. You're a little bit too late. Charlie, take care of him. Start that ray. Come on, get it started.
Here, selling brokers and buying brokers meet and trade. Transactions involving thousands of dollars are contracted for by a wave of the hand or a nod of the head. The exchange recorder on the left writes the trade on a slip of paper and hands it to a messenger. The messenger timestamps it and hands it to the stock ticker operator. The operator sends a record of the transaction out over the ticker, from which it becomes known all over the country. The transaction is also recorded on this huge blackboard, so that all members and employees of the exchange will know that someone has sold and someone has bought, and at what price and in what volume. The floor clerk also reports the sale by telephone to his brokerage office. Meanwhile, the seller, who is waiting in the broker's office, watches the ticker tape to learn the trend of the market. As soon as the broker hears about the transaction by telephone, he reports the sale and the price to his customer. If the seller brings the stock certificate with him, the broker gives him a receipt for his securities and advises him that a check will be sent out in a few days. The seller may not bring the certificate, however, and in this case, the transaction is completed by mail. So far, the transaction has been very simple, at least for the seller and buyer. But there is much more to be done by the broker and his staff before the transaction is completed. A written confirmation of the transaction is mailed to the seller by the selling broker and also to the buyer by the buying broker. On the floor of the exchange, the selling broker's clerk makes out an exchange ticket of the transaction, which looks like this. He deposits the ticket in the distributing department of the Stock Clearing Corporation. Each member has one of these boxes, and after the tickets are sorted, the buying broker's clerk stamps the ticket in confirmation and redeposits it in the clearinghouse. Information on these tickets is transferred by this card punching machine to what is called a punch card. The cards are then sorted in an automatic sorting machine. From many of these cards, containing similar information for various transactions, the clearinghouse prepares a record of each member's transactions for the day in this automatic tabulating machine.
will show you the others are. Come on, hurry up.
If the selling broker has bought 100 AMC for another customer, the clearinghouse will eliminate delivery outside the broker's office by merely balancing his receipts and deliveries. Only the clearinghouse balances are delivered.
I sure am grateful.
The final step in the transaction is the delivery of the check from the broker to the seller. This is usually done by mail.
Not at all. Just name.
Generally, this occurs only 2 or 3 days after the sale is made. The investor receives the check from which has been deducted the broker's commission and the federal tax.